critique of whiteness is not of people who identify as white. Okay? My critique of whiteness is critique of any type of identity developed for the purposes of exclusion and dominance. And if there's ever any question about it, think about how easy or hard, because it's usually one or the other. Look in your family's background if you are of European descent and find out about the struggles they have had to keep a connection to their own ethnic heritage and identity. Now, in Canada, it could be a little bit different. I don't know. In the United States, it's pretty damn intense. Okay, in the United States, a lot of white folks say, I'm part this, I'm part that, I'm part that. I don't know. Okay? Well, I don't know is not because they really don't give a shit. It's not that. It's because there is no mechanism forcing them to be connected to that for a sense of status and pride and a sense of accomplishment. Okay? For ethnic targets, people who have been targeted by large mechanisms, the entire institution, the set of institutions in which we exist, is designed to make you feel less than, to dehumanize you, to devalue you as a person, to deprive you of access to things, to deprive you of access to necessities, and to deprive you of access to even a sense of your own history and self-worth. So in that, you have folks, when faced with a presentation that what the symbolic representation of your pigmentation and your features means bad, means negative, means threatening. The political activism around self-definition and people feeling like they belong on this planet is to counteract that symbolism of negativity with attaching a positivity to those ethnic symbolisms. So when sometimes white people are like, why are you always talking about you black? Because black is beautiful. I'm not going to slap the shit out of you and say I'm black, fool. Because all that does is participate in a stereotype. But when you see me as professor, when you see me putting sentences together, when you see me studying, when you see me doing what a human being is supposed to do, I want you to know that I'm doing that consciously as a black person. Because blackness is associated to humanity in my construct, even if historical state and media constructs present us as inhuman. Does that make sense? Okay? So my critique, when you hear me talk about white this and white that's not like, damn, he hate white people. No, I'm conscious. I'm aware. I'm aware. Okay? The allies over the generations, going back to folks that were the abolitionists, going back to missionaries that did not even believe in slavery. Those were allies. Folks that said, whatever this system, whatever this structure is doing to these human beings, I am not in agreement with. Okay? That goes back since my folks was captured. Okay? So there's no reality saying that people of European descent are somehow inherently for oppression. So what we have to be critical of is the dominating ideological justification and the institutions that present those justifications that convince you that the oppression of certain people are okay today. And usually they will do that by somehow presenting them as strange, as unusually angry, as ungrateful. Okay? And allowing you to forget that your people were once considered the exact same way. Alright? So that's what this construct of race and whiteness does. Okay? It erases the value, the human value that comes along with saying, wait, I'm part Irish. And I know how the Irish were treated in North America. I know what they used to say about the Irish. I know how people felt about Irish immigration. I know before the term acting black came out to define what acting stupid or violent is, back in the early 1800s they used to say acting Irish. I know that. So now when this person is pissed and they're African American or they're indigenous and they're pissed off, I can think about my great-grandfather. Instead of saying, I don't know why they're so angry. Right? So that's the critique. Are y'all following me here? Okay. I know I'm a little weird, but you know, just you know, kind of, you know, stay with the weird guy. You know what I mean? Like, listen for a little bit, I guess. You know. All right. So in this construct of education and this idea of next week I'm supposed to be talking about like this idea of liberation and liberatory education, and I'm so excited about that topic. I'm gonna start sweating soon, so don't trip, because I get all excited. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I watch anime, I ride a motorcycle, and so I'm just hyper like I was 12 years old. Okay, so I get all right. So in understanding this construct, we want to think back to kind of like this idea of racism as a justification. Okay, and this is how I like to discuss it, right? Because folks kind of get on it a lot, and I don't get to teach as many students of color as I used to. So I'm usually teaching students that identify as white. And so that can be really challenging at times for them, you know, because they're like... No, I mean, seriously, because, you know, given the design of the structure, many people may not even have had a black male teacher before. I still meet students that ain't talked to a black man until they was 23 years old. Right? And so then here I come in, I'm all loud and shit, and I'm cussing and shit, you see this? Right? And then folks are like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, I can't hear you when you're so loud. I'm like, I'd be like, wow, and so that's interesting. That's wow, that's fabulous, you know? But a lot of this goes back to this larger dynamic, right? If we think about the Atlantic, and I'm not going to do this whole history lesson because you already know a lot of this stuff, I think. But if you think about constructing the Atlantic slave trade, we always think about it as like this story of like suffering, right? And it is, and it's far more than that. But what we want to understand is kind of like the foundation of this initial global expansion of our economic system. Okay, so it's not the story only of a people, a broad, massive group of people that participated in the process. I mean, okay, slow down, Darrick, slow down. Get all excited. Okay, so think about like Walter Rodney's How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. It's a great book. It's a great book. It's a long book. I'm not good with long books. That's, you know, I used to, yeah. I went to church, people were like, did you read the Bible? I'd be like, it's kind of long, the type of thing. You know, so like, I'm a Catholic, so that's like, uh-oh, you know what I mean? What the hell, you know what I mean? So, but it's long, but it's good. But he details this whole process. It really talks about the extraction of between 1650s and 1850s. He's really looking at a time period. He talks about an estimated, and people have varying numbers. We're looking at about 48 million people taken off the continent of Africa. Okay, 48 million, roughly, okay? And what he does, which I found was really interesting, is that he compares the growth of the continents in that, after that period, right? And what he finds is that pretty much the population growth of the continent of Africa was stunted by about 54% as a result of this extraction, right? And these are mostly young people being extracted. So theoretically, and this is not literally, but in my mind it's literally, but you can just take it as theoretically, right? You have the exporting of teenagers, and young people mostly, to these other regions in the world, mostly South America and the Caribbean, right? Because that's where most of the beautiful African peoples that were taken ended up. But some here, right? About 1 million or so between Canada and the United States. And then you had another 800,000 to 1 million or so in that 200-year period going to Europe. But about 9.5, 11 million or so went to South America and the Caribbean, right? So that's why when you go down there, just chocolate people everywhere. You know what I mean? You look at Jamaica and you're like, damn, look at all these black people in Jamaica. And you know, like, wait, it's an island. Like, all these black people in the middle of the ocean. Well, it's because you have a system that has to slaughter all the indigenous people and then bring in slaves, right? So that's how you end up with Jamaica, everybody being black, and people be like all happy and shit, be like, look at all the black people, but we ain't supposed to really be there, right? So you end up with this massive exporting of peoples for the purposes of profit, of course, right? Estimates of about 1 in 3. So 1 in 3 reach their destination. then 1 in 3 died in the first 3 years of their arrival. Okay? So you're seeing a shrinking. Yes? Shrinking, right? So you end up not just having the diaspora all over the place. You end up, for a significant amount of time, killing off a large portion of those millions. Okay? Now, again, in order to get them on those lands, you have to literally start slaughtering and moving people that were already on those lands, which is how we end up with all these discussions about the welfare of indigenous peoples, right? Because you end up with a concept that says, we are taking this land, this colonizing concept, right? That we're taking this land, and we're taking this land because it's of value to us, it's of less value to you because you have no value. So anything that has value to you has no value. Okay, and so the reason why I'm describing this is because these basic, fundamental, theoretical pieces of this large economic expansion we know as colonization in the Atlantic slave trade were cemented into our economic system. Okay, the idea that certain bodies have less value than other bodies, and thus anything that they value has no value. Okay, that's instituted within our structure, okay? And it's so deeply instituted, and I always remind folks, I was like, well, we just need to change it. Just flip it. Change some laws. And I'm like, yeah, changing laws is always good. But this wasn't something that was just established by legal process. It's established by bloodletting, like killing. You got to kill. You got to slaughter. You got to do some stuff I won't mention, but, you got to do some crazy stuff, right? Read Eduardo Galeano's, read that, Open Veins in Latin America. How many of y'all read that? Yeah. One of the few books that made me cry, man. And I don't read novels, so I'd probably cry more if I read novels. But that is one of those books that the brutality and the suffering is so sick. So you end up with this system that we're in. And all our modern comforts, I don't know, for so many people they tend to forget, it's essentially a brutal system of profit. Period. Okay? So if you ain't being slaughtered, then you just need to find who's being slaughtered today, because someone is. Okay? And folks tend to forget that, right? Like when we start talking about liberation struggles here in North America or in Europe, folks like liberation. Well, you know what, Brother Darrick, when you talk about liberation, man, that's that old 70s and 60s stuff, man. Look, we done made it. Feel me? Look, I turn TV. Look what Lil Wayne doing. You feel me? Like, he doing this thing, trying to get away from Baby. They got billions. Look at Jay and Bay. Feel me? We doing it. We got diamonds, you know what I'm saying? Bentleys. We done made it. You feel me? And that's folks that I'll be talking to, right? But then you also have more conservative folks that's like, look how great everything is now. If I turn on the TV and I can see Nicki Minaj, and then you come and tell me that black people are struggling. Like, those two don't add up. Those two don't add up because I don't know what this woman does well, but she has way more money than my whole family, and then here you come up and you're like, black people are struggling. I just don't see it, right? And so you end up with this interesting dynamic that here, I think it's harder for certain folks to see. Does this make any sense? Yeah. I think one of the reasons it's harder, and this is kind of obvious, but again, hopefully this is affirming and halfway interesting to you, is that you have, okay, I'm going to get a little crass. It's not, there's certain words I don't say, so not that crass, but I used to teach my students for many years about woman abuse and pimping. I would use a great book by Louis O'Kuhn called The Coercive Control of Woman Abuse. And the reason why I did that is because my city had one of the highest child prostitution rates in the United States. Okay. And while people are very upset over black men being killed, and have been since we've been killed at highly disproportionate rates by police, and quite frankly, more so by each other, there's less talk about the rape rate that occurs in our American cities, at least, and to what I understand, many metropolitan areas around the world. And so I wanted my girls to know the strategies of abusive boyfriends and pimps. So they had to study, and I wanted my boys should know as well. And whoever else was in the class, they had to understand that. And one of the things we talked about was that when a pimp is making money, what makes him stop? And, you know, folks are like, well, maybe he goes to church. That's true. But what is it about church that's going to make him stop? Well, he's going to have a revelation. He's going to shift to something like that, right? And that is one really good reason, because I know a couple of folks that stopped doing some dirt because they just had a spiritual revelation. But I know a lot of other folks that something dramatic happened to make them have a revelation, right? Somebody put a gun in their mouth, feel me? They went to jail, right? Somebody close to them got hurt, okay? But the point is that if I'm making money in a capitalist economy, nothing really is going to motivate me to stop making money that way, okay? And so when we think about pimping is pretty much just, you know, the ground level version of a larger capitalist economy, right? I find cheap labor, I utilize their body, use it up for my profit. They get just enough to continue working. And when I'm done with them, I get rid of them. Mm-hmm. That's just a basic pimping philosophy, okay? Pimps, drug dealers, cats like that, gangsters, they're just an essential manifestation of a capitalist idea, okay? So with that said, stopping a system like this requires some very creative, strategic confrontations, right? Because, oh, don't say that there, that's too violent. I don't believe in pimping. So, I don't believe in pimping. Now, that could be very dangerous for pimps, because I don't believe in pimping. You get what I'm saying? But if I'm going to stop a pimp, I'm going to try and stop a pimp before they become a pimp. Y'all follow what I'm saying? Okay. So, in this context of understanding these large pimping ideologies, in order to challenge these systems, we have to be able to get in front of them. Right? And understand that the draw of the money and the draw of the ideology that pretty much pumps up the ego of the person involved. It's a very strong draw, right? You are nothing unless you have money. You are worth nothing unless you have money. I will not listen to you unless you have money. What's your name in the gold?
Trisha.
Oh, are you in the gold?
Oh, my bad.
Oh, that's all right.
I'm sorry.
What's your name?
Me?
Yes.
Oh, Trisha Lee.
Trisha Lee?
Yeah. No, Trisha Lee.
Trisha Lee.
Yeah, Trisha Lee.
Trisha Lee?
Yeah.
Oh, my bad.
Sorry.
So, you know, Oakland, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I'm not good at that, but thank you. Yeah. What's your name in the gold?
Adabu.
Adabu? That's dope. Right. Adabu. You got $1 million? No. Okay. Right. If you had $1 million and you had a record deal, you wouldn't even be able to sit there right now. Folks would be all on you, autographs, everything, waiting for you to say one word. What do you think about the university? What do you think? I think it's cool. Oh, I think it's cool. I think it's cool. Okay? Without that, you a person of color that don't nobody want to hear. Okay? Of course, people will love you and respect you. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, but theoretically, largely nobody wants to hear. Okay? So if we are talking about challenging a system that is so ingrained in all of us, our education and how we attack this system has to be on point. Our strategy has to be very nuanced. Yes, but very sophisticated. Are you following this? Okay? So this is kind of this crazy stuff, but it's not something I'm coming up with, right? Liberation pedagogy. Yes, a culturally responsive pedagogy. Yes, liberation theology. These are all notions, popular education. These are all notions that speak to how do you deflate and undermine an oppressive system using education. Okay? So now this takes on a completely different slant then, right? Because then you start to identify conventional education as just an institution supportive of the larger mechanism. All right? So when I look at college students and I say, okay, let's talk about race, and people are like, well, I never really learned how to talk about race. My ass is like, how did you make it to college and not ever have to talk about race? Because you're in an institution that wants to support that mechanism. How do colleges have high rape rates and be the center of knowledge? That's a direct contradiction. It must not be the center of knowledge, right? How in the hell do we have such sophisticated mechanisms of technology and you still have people in deep levels of poverty that can't access the basic needs of their life when certain wealthy people can have groceries delivered to their front door with the exact materials they want in it, right? So that's not saying, it's not like some complaint that society's all screwed up and we just all need to blow it up. It's not that at all. But what it's saying is that we're identifying that the institutions that fall in line with the larger mechanism have to be our spaces of resistance. This is why college radicals and college resistance is so important. Because these are the spaces where people come to be affirmed that everything is okay. That if I just learn how to discuss poverty, I don't have to intervene upon it. If I just learn how to use language affirming the feminine, I don't have to be a feminist ally. Right? If I learn just to not call gay people a bad word, I don't have to actually challenge my partners in being an ally with the LGBTQ community.